Welcome to the Frugalpreneur podcast. I am your host, Sarah St. John. This episode is what I refer to as a showcase episode where I feature a bootstrapped entrepreneur and they briefly share their tips, tricks, tactics, techniques, and tools that help them bootstrap their business and the successes and failures along the way. My hope is that each of these showcase episodes will provide at least one valuable takeaway that you could implement right away in your own bootstrap business journey. Now, on to the episode.
So when I was in high school, I was not what they would call a model student. I just didn't work. So when I was graduating high school, I realized that my GPA wouldn't get me into any university that anybody's ever heard of. And so I went in the Marine Corps. I did that for 6 years. And when I got out of the Marines, I'd been working in electronics. I thought, let me do electrical engineering. It'll give me a chance to be creative. And went off and got both a undergraduate and a graduate degree in electrical engineering, and then sadly discovered that engineering is not a great place to be creative. And so I decided to take what I had and move over to marketing, but I marketed chips for mobile phones. And so I've been in the offices of the world's largest mobile phone makers, some of them still in business, many of them not, unfortunately, but been in Apple, been in Samsung, those are still in business, but also was in Nokia when they were number one cell phones. And when the margins compressed in that industry, they started asking me to fly coach to go to Asia. And I would go to Asia 4 or 5 times a year. And I did not like the idea of that. So I left and started my own marketing agency to do more traditional marketing. That's been kind of a real interesting journey. It's been wonderful. I've learned so much. I tell my buddies from the semiconductor days that I've spent the last 10 years learning how little know about marketing. And it's just, there's so much. It's so exciting, so neat to learn some of these deeper concepts. And so that's kind of how I got here. When I started my business, I wasn't coming flush with cash and I was learning in the process. And so a lot of it was I just had to kind of conserve what I had, reduce spending, but be very judicious in where I did spend. And one of the first things I did was I had a little convertible sports car and I sold that because one, insurance was expensive for that. And two, that was money that would put food on the table and pay the rent and keep me going running the business. And it's funny, that's also when I met my current wife. And she jokes that, yeah, I gave her the bait and switch. Our first date, we went out in that little sports car and then I sold it, but that was just kind of the timing of things. But just takes discipline and focus. I'd say the hardest thing is figuring out where to make investments and where not. Because not all investments pay out. And when you're kind of bootstrapping, you can't make too many wrong mistakes. So my biggest success in bootstrapping my business was actually following the advice of my wife. I was looking at taking two different classes and I could take one, but not both. And I was really debating which one to take. And I was thinking about taking the first option, and my wife talked me out of it. And she said, I really think you should take this other one. And that put me in a world of marketers here in Austin, Texas, that are just stunningly amazing. And it's completely transformed the way that I do marketing. Learned so much, benefited so much from that. So that would be a success that I will give to my wife. The biggest failure was early on. There was some custom software I was having developed by somebody, and spent a lot of money on him developing the software, and it ended up just being a complete loss. That's something I wish I could go back and do again. That was the biggest mistake. So in terms of tips and tricks to bootstrap, one, just avoid debt. That's so bad. But two, there's a lot of free tools and resources out there to help people get started. And I would use as many of those as possible. And before you go off and run a big ad campaign, test your idea on a small scale and make sure it's resonating with people. So those are a couple thoughts that come to mind in terms of bootstrapping. And the thing that's been most powerful for me, most transformative, was when I came up with something called a first time offer. It's kind of an entry offer for a new customer, and it's a irresistible offer. The key is that you convert them to a customer as quickly and cheaply as possible. and then you make money on the back end. Now, for this to work, you have to have a reasonable understanding of the lifetime value of your customer. Don't get caught up in the cost of acquisition. Let's say if a customer has a lifetime value of $10,000, would you be willing to spend $1,000 to acquire them? A lot of people say yes to that question. And so that helps you understand how much value you can pack into your first time offer. There's a lot that goes into that, more than I could possibly explain right here. So we have a couple gifts to help you put this to work. And guess what? They're free. The first is a guide on how to make a first time offer and how to avoid a lot of the mistakes that I made. And I made a lot of mistakes. It took me 18 months to figure this out. And so you get a guide. And the other thing is you get 23 days free access to our course, self-paced course on how to do that. You can access those at our website. If you go to alliesforme.com/bootstrap, all lowercase, that's ALLIES, the number 4ME.com/bootstrap. And just sign up there and you'll get these free resources, and hopefully they help you as much as it's helped me.
I hope you enjoyed that episode and were able to take away a valuable nugget of information that you can implement right away in your own business. If you feel your story would be valuable for the listeners of this show, please visit frugal.show/guest.